Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Ennis, and I wear two hats actually with SeniorsNL. I'm the outreach coordinator, and I'm also the coordinator of SeniorsNL Provincial Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's Let's Talk About. And today we'll be talking about a very serious issue for many seniors, not only in the province, but worldwide. And that is the issue of abuse. Kelly Heisz, SeniorsNL's Executive Director, wave Kelly, and I will discuss how neighbors, friends, and family members can make a positive difference in the life of an older adult experiencing abuse. This session can help participants to recognize the warning signs of abuse and learn how to be supportive and help older adults who are at risk of or who are being abused. As we noted in our invitation to you to join this session, we have a shared responsibility to promote respect for all members of our society. World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, which is today, June 15th, is especially important as it is the day when there is global reflection and awareness building of elder abuse. So let's talk about how friends, neighbors, and family can help address elder abuse, uses videos and information from another program, and that program is It's Not Right, Neighbors, Friends, and Family of Older Adults, Changing Social Norms of Bystanders on Abuse of Older Adults. Our weekly Let's Talk sessions are supported by United Way, and we're very grateful for that support. Just a few housekeeping tips here. As I asked, please keep your mics muted, at least during the presentation, but we're hoping for some good discussion afterwards. Captioning, you can notice at the bottom of the screen. And please, if you have any comments or questions during the presentation, if you will put them in the chat box, that would be great. Just click on chat down there on the bottom of the screen, and the little chat box to do your typing will come up in the bottom right-hand corner. The session, of course, is being recorded. One other thing, we do invite presentation topics. So if there's any topics that anyone would really like us to address, just send it along and we'll see what we can do. The more sessions we get, the more topics, the better. I'm just going to take a moment now and acknowledge the land that we live on. We respectfully acknowledge the land on which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk, whose culture has now been erased forever. We also acknowledge the island of Uktahunguk as the unceded traditional territory of the Beothuk and Mi'kmaq. And we acknowledge Labrador as the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Innu of Nitassinan, the Inuit of Nunatsiavut, and the Inuit of Nunatukavut. We recognize all First Peoples who were here before us, those who live with us now and the 7 generations to come. As First Peoples have done since time immemorial, we strive to be responsible stewards of the land and to respect the cultures and traditions of all who call it home. As we open our hearts and minds to the past, we commit ourselves to living in a spirit of truth and reconciliation to make a better future for all. Now we're just going to take a minute here, and Sherry is going to run a poll for us. Just some beginning questions for everybody. You getting that up there, Sherry?
You're muted.
I said I'll wait a couple more seconds there. It's almost done. 90% are done.
Good.
Okay. And it's almost,
I guess
and there we go.
Can everybody see that?
So I'll share
No one-
I'll share the results now.
Yeah, okay, so ask the question because I don't think,
Oh.
yeah.
The question was, would you feel comfortable talking to a senior about elder abuse? And here were the results.
We can't see them. I don't know why. Can you see them? Good, okay.
Can you see them now?
Important people can see them.
Yes, that's the main thing.
They said very comfortable with 50% said very comfortable. 39% said somewhat comfortable. 0% cannot, rather not answer, and 11% not very comfortable, and 0% not comfortable at all.
Good.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Sorry about that. Elder abuse is not it's not a new topic for some of you, I'm sure. I know some of you have been working very hard to build awareness around elder abuse.
Mary, can you advance your slide? Thank you. There you go.
Sorry. And the more we talk about elder abuse, the more awareness we build around it, and the greater the possibility of reducing its occurrence. On this World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, we want you to leave this session and talk with even one person, just one person that you meet, about elder abuse and what you've heard during today's session. Just one person, and hopefully that person will talk with someone else. And let's work together, really work hard together to build more awareness around the issue of elder abuse. We, during the registration process, we invited your responses to one question. And that question was, do you know of someone who is or who is at risk of being abused? Of the 26 responses received, 5 people said yes, 15 said no, and 6 said they weren't sure. And being unsure is not unusual, and actually even saying no is not unusual, okay? Oftentimes abuse can take place in such a way that we end up giving it the benefit of the doubt. You know, was that an accident? Was it really intentional? No. Okay, so yeah, so those are the answers anyway. So 5 of you have witnessed abuse at one point in time, or definitely know someone who's being abused. I want to thank you to everyone who sent any questions during the registration process. And if any questions that you have aren't covered in the slides, we'll respond to them at the end of today's presentation. And as we move along, you can put any questions and comments, as I mentioned earlier, in the chat box at the bottom of the screen. And when the presentation is over, we'll respond to them. And time permitting, and we're going to make sure time does permit, we're going to open the floor and hopefully have more questions from you and some good discussion as we go along. Today, during this session, you'll learn to recognize the warning signs of abuse, respond safely and supportively. The little things you do can make a big difference, and that's true. Keep that in mind. You know, every little thing, every little positive thing or supportive thing you do is a help. And there is help in the community. If you run into a problem and you're not sure how to handle it, there is help available out there. And we're going to give you resources at the end of the presentation so you'll know where to go to get help. Remember though, everyone has the right to be safe and free from abuse or neglect. And we have a shared responsibility to create safe, healthy, and strong communities. Something definitely to keep in mind. Why isn't my slide moving? There we are. People who experience abuse need support, and we know that. I mean, to be abused is, there are so many different kinds of abuse, and to be abused makes one feel really minimized, as though they don't count, okay? And so they do need support. They need good, strong, solid support. People who are abusive are accountable for their actions, but again, they may not recognize it as abusive behavior, especially within a family. You know, I mean, family members tend to tease each other and look to each other for help, expect help from the family members. And sometimes those expectations can be very abusive. And we'll talk more about that later on as well. But neighbors, friends, and family members certainly can make a difference.
So what is abuse of older adults? And some of you are avid viewers of all of our sessions and have participated over time in regards to this. But it's important to always talk about what is it in order for our new viewers to who may not be totally aware. So it is harm caused by older adults by someone who limits or controls their rights and freedoms. And the older adults are unable to freely make choices because they are afraid of being hurt, humiliated, left alone, or of the relationship ending. So abuse is not just impolite or rude behavior. It is abuse when one person uses power or influence to take advantage of or to control the older adult. Neglect of older adults who cannot manage on their own is also abuse. So abuse means power. It really is a power imbalance. Abuse is misuse of that power. It can make the person experience it, feel small, alone, and powerless. It can be a raging and terrifying thing. It is verbal, it could be verbal, physical, financial, sexual, spiritual, and of course, neglect as well. So again, it can be very subtle and hard to see. And sometimes as we go through it, through our slides and through our videos, you'll see some subtleties that sometimes you have to pause and think. And of course, a lot of the individuals who do have that abusive behavior, they want to control your every move and control your money as well.
So the warning signs of abuse, and there are warning signs, okay? There are things to watch out for. If I tell you I'm being abused, believe me, and that's the rule number one. If someone tells you that they are being abused, then listen to them, please. Believe what they're saying. I become depressed and withdrawn or fearful. People who go through abusive experiences often do it. I mean, easily, and I'm sure everybody can understand how being abused can lead to depression. It can make one fearful for, in some cases, fearful for their life, fearful that they won't be taken care of, fearful that if they try to do anything about it, they'll end up being the ones to pay for it. Anyone who stops attending social events at church. You might have friends that you see all the time, and then all of a sudden, where's Kelly gone? She's not out anymore. I don't understand what's going on. Someone suddenly moves in with me, and that happens. You get an older person who might not be feeling well, particularly, and then all of a sudden someone shows up, some long lost relative, and I'm going to come and take care of you. So when that kind of a sudden move can be a warning sign to something bad in the works. Signs of neglect: no food in the house, for example. You see someone and they don't look like they're being cared for anymore. They're not eating. They might be, the clothes are in disrepair or not clean. Their house is probably a mess. There's signs of being neglected can also mean signs that someone is being abused. My phone's cut off, or things start disappearing from my house. I have injuries I can't explain. All of those things are things to question. To keep them in mind as a friend or a neighbor or another family member. Keep these warning signs in mind and watch and do a little bit of exploration to see try to find out what is going on, what's causing some of these situations. Controlling behavior. Making all the decisions without asking. Someone is making all the decisions for you. They're not discussing them with you. They're not asking you how you feel. They're just making decisions and expecting you to go along with them. Isolating people from family and friends. You go to see Sherry, and you're told that she's sick all the time. No, she's not up to visitors today. She's not well. And eventually you realize that, hey, nobody is seeing Sherry. So what's going on there? She's been kept away from us. Threats of violence or abandonment. You do this, you sign this paper, let me have access to your bank account, or I'm going to leave you. I'm not going to take care of you anymore, or I'm going to hurt you. Disregard for privacy, walking in on someone you're supposed to be caring for, walking in on them when they're getting dressed or when they're bathing, unless they need the help to do it. But there is certainly an invasion of privacy, going through people's mail, reading people's mail, handling all of the money. Oh, let me handle your money now. And Leo Barnell, who's online, could talk for hours on money. Locks on the outside of the doors. Why does Sherry have a lock on the outside of her bedroom door? That's awfully strange. All of those things are warning signs. They could certainly be warning signs of abusive situations. So be on the lookout for them, or any others, weird things that you see happening around you, and do a little bit of investigating.
Mm-hmm. So why are some people more at risk? And some, there's been some research over the past number of years. There was a Canadian study, and of course it seems to be on the radar as as people become more aware of elder abuse. And we find that, the isolation and people that isolate individuals may be a reason, as well as a person might be abusing, and in order for them to maintain their power, they do isolate them and put them away. We do find that females are more apt, older females are more apt to experience violence, sexual violence, and other forms of elder abuse. And that oftentimes abuse can escalate further and further. And as you can see, those even more at risk as we grow older are oftentimes, we see here, LGBTQ The 2S, that we needed to change that, I apologize, but it is the 2S LGBTQ plus. Seniors may face social discrimination due to their age, as well as their sexual orientation or gender identity. And oftentimes we've heard of seniors in this particular group will withdraw and not self-identify simply because of current situation. There's also the ongoing legacy of residential schools and colonization, and Indigenous people are 6 times more likely to be killed and often are abused in many ways. We also find that roughly 20% of trans seniors have been physically or sexually abused for being trans. That women with disabilities are 4 times more likely to be sexually assaulted. And that Indigenous women make up 21% of all homicides in Canada. So these are things that we need to ensure that when we think of older adults, that it's not a homogeneous group, okay? It's not all one or the other. It is a mix just like our population. And that individuals, as they grow older, can be at risk for other particular pieces that are other, groups that they may be involved and engaged in, as well as their culture may play a role. So we need to be very mindful of being open, having an open mind on knowing that regardless of their religion, their race, their sexual orientation, gender identity, etc., does not play a role in how important they need to be supported. We also may have, when you think about someone who lives alone, it's becoming more and more, what's the word? The population of people who live alone is increasing. So we do find a lot of older adults who will continue to live alone and therefore may be at risk. Of course, a deteriorating health may also put them at risk should someone may feel that I can certainly say that I will take care of you, and they may be putting themselves in a situation where they could be abused. Of course, addictions may also play a role, but it is something, again, like we said, we need to keep an open mind and be able to look and seek out appropriate supports in order to address any particular needs.
Who behaves abusively towards older adults? Not monsters. There are a lot of monsters out there, but it's not usually the monsters who abuse older adults. It's people that we know. And most often, unfortunately, but most often, the abusers are family members, adult children or grandchildren. That's a pretty profound statement there, to think that the people that you love the most and trust the most are the most likely to abuse you. People who behave abusively can also be other relatives or friends. They can be paid or unpaid caregivers, landlords, financial advisors, anyone in a position of power, authority, or trust.
So the neighbors, friends, and family, the information that we're sharing you today has developed a way for us as neighbors, friends, and family, as well as service providers, really, to figure out, okay, so how can I be a support? How do I know it's an abusive situation? Do I actually know, is it what I saw? Do I understand that? And what they've came up with, which I think is a really interesting process for us, which is very easy. They call it SYNC IT, which is called see it, name it, and check it. So when you see it, you notice when something makes you feel not right. You've seen something, you're going, I don't know. Is it what I saw? So then you name it. So talk to someone, the older adult first, What are the warning signs? We've went through some of the warning signs, and name your concern. Again, you know, the videos that we'll be sharing now shortly will allow you to use some of these tools that when you see the videos, you're seeing something, you need to name it, and you will see some responses. And of course, check it, ask questions. Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? Rather than jump to conclusions, it's really important to make sure that what you saw, that you understand it, that you talk to the adult first, and then you would ask those questions. So it's about opening the door to a conversation so that you can really understand what you saw and what the situation might be. We will also be talking about the ways in which you can contact. There are contact numbers and organizations in which you can reach out to so that you can talk to them as well. So of course, again, see it, name it, and check it, sync it. So of course, you also want to be prepared for disclosures. So if someone tells you they are being abused, here are some helpful things that you can say. I believe you. It's about validating their concerns, their fears, their worries. They're sharing something with you and you want to say, I believe you. You want to tell them it's not their fault. You could also say to them, I'm worried about your safety. And of course, if you are very concerned that this person is in danger, you do need to call the police or 911 in order that that individual can get the support immediately. And of course, you can say, I will support you and your decisions. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to share some videos, and they are from neighbors, friends, and family. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at 3 scenarios. The first scenario is going to be shown now shortly, and then we will look at 2 responses. And if anybody wants, we would like to be able to open up the discussion. Should anyone have any questions or comments regarding the video? So it is hoping that we'll be able to have some short discussion on that. And please, if you don't have to make a comment, if you don't feel comfortable, by all means, that's fine. And whenever Mary has
We're ready for the first one.
We're ready for the first one. So
Okay.
turn up your volume.
Can everyone see that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, let's get moving.
Are you sure you're going to be comfortable in the basement?
Yeah, there's plenty of room, Mom. Besides, your granddaughter will never be home. You're a lifesaver, Mom. I don't know what I would have done without you.
I'm sure you're going to find another job in no time.
You mind if I watch a movie? By the way, your bank card was rejected at the gas station today. It was really embarrassing.
What are you talking about?
I went to fill up my car and it wouldn't go through. It must be overdrawn or something. Better hope your check comes in this week. You're not gonna be able to get your prescriptions refilled. What are you doing?
I can't get used to the damp downstairs.
Oh, try another blanket, Mom. We're boiling up here.
No, I would have wished you would have asked me before you moved me into the basement.
Why? You just have to be on my back, Mom. It's too dark and dingy down there. I get depressed, you know that. You play your puzzles down there as well as you can up here.
What's for dinner, Grams? I'm starving.
Okay, does anybody have any comments? Feel free. While Mary gets the first response ready.
Selfish fellows, my comment.
Not an uncommon scene. It happens a lot of times. Most of us that's been involved with seniors and aging, we see it happening in communities right across this country. It's the promising lifelong care piece and not delivered.
Mhm.
I think it's done over, a long time. Like it kind of came in, he's going to be in the basement and then just kind of slips right in and kind of just takes right over. So again, it's like Leo said, it's probably, it is, I'm sure, very common. Very sad, actually.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it is fairly common and it can be very subtle. Like you said, Eileen, it's over time. And of course, when you look at it and how things are going to pan out, you're not quite sure. So we're going to have we have two responses to share with you in regard to how her friend.
Kelly, before we move on,
Yes.
going back to that video, this is a real Newfoundland scene today, with a lot of people moving back from Alberta. And, they've got into financial mess back in, and now they're moving in with the parents, but this time they're bringing in 2 or 3 kids. with them. And so the grandparents or the mom and dad really is faced with having to deal with that issue. They've been living on their own for a while, and now he got, like I say, 3 kids and 2 parents. It puts a lot of financial stress on them.
Yes.
Ready to go with response 1.
Okay.
How are things going with your son being home? I feel badly for him. He's having such a hard time of it. He and his daughter moved upstairs on the weekend. And where does that leave you? In the spare room.
In the basement? Oh, I am sorry, but that is going too far. You still cater to his every whim when what he really needs is a swift kick in the pants. If you don't put your foot down, he's never going to leave that couch, never mind look for a job.
Okay, so that's response number 1. Does anybody have any comments in regards to how her friend reacted to the information that her friend shared?
that's a proper response from her friend. Yeah. She should have gone further.
Yeah.
You ready to go?
Okay, we'll play the second response.
How are things going with your son being home? I feel badly for him. Such a hard time of it. He and his daughter moved upstairs on the weekend. And where does that leave you? In the spare room.
In the basement? I'm worried about you. Your life has changed so much. I'm okay.
That's response number 2. Any comments on that response?
I like one because she went further. I like it.
Yeah.
Leo?
Yes, a much more appropriate response. It's the caring piece. It will help get her open up a little more too.
Yeah, good.
Yes. The 2 responses that we presented to you really is like a reaction. The first one is a reaction to the information.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's like a gut reaction. Sometimes you react in that way. And the second one really is a response.
Yeah.
You're responding to what the senior has said to you. And it's really about, as Leo said, it's opening the door for further conversation. When you have a gut reaction and say, oh, I can't believe you did this. Why would you do this? You need to give the gentleman a swift kick in the pants. It's almost like closing the door. It's telling the senior what they need to do, and they may not be in that place at that particular time. They need someone to validate how they feel and say, are you okay? Let's talk and see what else we can do. And you could see the look on the lady's face, that it was a much more receptive response that allowed her to be able to open up a little bit more, to say, well, what can I do? How can I, address the situation? Things are not well for me. Any questions or other comments?
Scenario 2 coming up.
Okay, scenario 2.
I spoke to my realtor.
Are we sure we're ready to sell?
I've lived in this house nearly 50 years.
We know, Dad.
The market's not going to get any better, and neither is his health.
It's the right move to make financially. God knows these bills never stop.
I always pay the gas first, then electric and
The
telephone.
house needs some work. Painting at a minimum, maybe the roof.
That roof's good for another 10 years.
Eve, what
He doesn't have a choice. Not if we want a quick sale.
What are we going to do with all his junk?
You can't buy furniture like that anymore.
We could always donate it.
Have you checked out some of these retirement communities?
They all look the same to me.
It all costs the same.
Any comments on our second scenario?
It's typical. I've seen it happen before. It might be for the right reasons. They want the father to move, but obviously in many, many cases, it's not for the right reasons. They just want to get the father out into a retirement home, sell the home, get the financial resources. I've seen it happen 1 or 2 times within the last couple of years.
And the other issue is even they're talking around him. They're not necessarily even including him in the conversation, which is very disrespectful.
The forceful action.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, thanks, Marie.
Susan here comments that they speak about him like he's not even there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's Linda here. When you watch this, it looks so cruel. I don't know whether families realize just how cruel it actually is. When I see this sort of thing, I wonder if the father had treated them like that when they were children, just how they were made out.
Yep.
But anyway, it's a hard time in a senior's life, there's no doubt, because they have no control, at least very little.
Yeah. You guys are so observant.
There's your first response.
Yeah, kids are worried about me, I guess. Want to make sure that I'm taken care of, as long as they're not the ones that have to do it. But, I'm not ready to sell this house, not yet.
That's so typical of them in their generation. So entitled to everything. You think the only reason that they think we brought to earth is so they could be happy. You gotta set them straight.
Do you think that's a response or a reaction?
That's a reaction.
Reaction, yeah.
He might be speaking from his own experience also.
Yeah. And look at the look on the gentleman's face when he was told to do that. Do you think he's comfortable at this point in time?
Push back.
Do you think the door is open or closed to more conversation?
Closed.
Open.
Probably closed. Yeah.
Let's see the next response.
Yeah, kids are worried about me, I guess. Want to make sure that I'm taken care of, as long as they're not the ones that have to do it. But, I'm not ready to sell this house, not yet.
You know, I think the kids have your best interests at heart, but sharp as a tack. It's your life. What do you want to do with it?
How do we feel about that response?
I like that one, Linda. I like that much better. It's kinder. It's more what a true friend would say to you. And it made a big difference to the gentleman himself.
Yeah, what he wants to do about it. Yeah.
His friend opens door for convincing.
Right. Yeah. It opened the door for more conversation. It probably gives the gentleman a little bit more empowerment, give back a little bit more power to him being able to say more things and get a bit more confidence to talk to his family, right? And, you know, he understands his family is concerned about him, but the way that they're doing it is definitely is not how he wants it to play out. Any other comments?
Yeah, Kelly, it's Charlene calling, or
Yes,
calling,
Charlene.
speaking. I just wanted to say that in both scenarios, it was interesting that the first response seemed to be that the onus was being put back on the senior or the individual to fix or address it. You know, they're already feeling, you know, oppressed or being controlled or whatever the case. And their friend, while good intentioned, is saying, you need to fix this, you need to address this, he needs a kick in the pants, you know, that sort of thing. So it just seemed that it's you know, someone else telling the person what to do, ironically.
Yes, very good. Yeah, you're right, Charlene. And they probably don't know what to do. I mean, if they feel that they haven't, at least if with the second response, you're opening the door for the senior to actually tell them how they feel and ask, okay, how can I get back this power? How can I address the situation? How can I, exactly. And sometimes that's all it needs is that little bit of confidence and shoring up some supports and things like that, and recognizing their fears and their struggles as real. And that's a good starting point.
And
Any other comment?
It's probably easier then, you know, once someone opens up a little bit or starts to see the light more or less, they're more apt to open up more. You know, and talk more about it and have a discussion and ask for suggestions. What should I do?
Brenda from the chat, she was saying very often we are taught to react rather than problem solve.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we have to teach ourselves, I guess, to problem solve, you know, restrain ourselves from reacting badly, no matter what the situation is like. We'll try to keep the other person in mind, the person that this is happening to.
Yeah. And when we think at the very beginning, when we say that abuse is about power and control. So when someone does, or we recognize, or we see that we think it's an abusive situation, we should almost think it is about this senior does not have power or control at this time. So to tell them, well, you need to do this is really telling someone who's powerless at this time to do something. So again, opening the door to the conversation will allow that, like we said, the empowerment to happen to say, what can we do to, you know, address the situation and to carry on a better conversation. A more deeper conversation.
And Brenda has a really good point here, ladies, that when people are hurt, they feel really hurt.
Yeah, I think the first two scenarios or the first two responses actually risk isolating the person even more, in the sense that they felt embarrassed and they felt hurt, and they probably would even be more reluctant to see those dear friends again as a result of that.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. They will shut down and they will never share anything again. They might probably, like in scenario one, they probably wouldn't invite her friend to her house anymore. So and then just ignore her friend because she's afraid her friend is going to ask questions. So it is, you're absolutely right.
She can't win for losing.
Yeah, yeah. But I think, the second response is validating how they feel, telling them how you feel that you're concerned, and it opens that door for conversations. Maybe not at that particular point, but at another time. And I mean, change, shaping this over time and shaping the conversation may take some time, but at least you've got the door open and that person knows that you're there to support them and to provide whatever else that person may need. So, I mean, it's a good start, right?
We ready for scenario 3?
Yes, we are.
The situation coming up.
They're also good, the audience.
Hello, Professor.
Yes. My brightest protege. Are we having lunch or is this a prison break? Oh, this isn't so bad. For an old folks home, you mean? Yeah, well, ever since I signed my power of attorney over to my son, he moved his family into my house and trundled me off to this warren for the aged. I don't understand. Is there something the matter? It's my property taxes. They're like 2 years in arrears. Shouldn't your son have taken care of this? Yes, that's what I was led to believe, but oh well. Shall we? We have a reservation on the street. For what? Okay. There you go. How's your son? Well, I don't know really, because between the sailboat and the cottage and ski trips and Caribbean getaways, his need for me has been eclipsed.
Need.
Any comments?
Hmm.
First reactions, first responses, how you feel?
I think she's she's asking the right questions, and I think she's setting up for another conversation. I think she's going in gently with him, and she's after seeing the code is too small, and so his probably physical needs aren't being met, and also all about his finances. So she may go in for a second conversation.
Yeah.
Some denial too on the part of the older gentleman.
Yeah. So we see something, we're naming it. It could be, like you said, physical needs are not being met. Possibly financial needs are not being met.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I don't think there's any doubt about, excuse me, what's happening there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the next one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ready for response 1?
Yes.
There you go. How's your son?
Well, I don't know really, because between the sailboat and the cottage and ski trips and Caribbean getaways, his need for me has been eclipsed.
I hope that he's not spending your money. Is he? You need to put it down.
Yeah.
Comments?
Yeah, I'm wondering how else is he having his ski trips and cottage and all those things. It's dad's money, I'm thinking.
She just shut him down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that this is a reaction that's appropriate at this time?
I don't think it's an appropriate reaction, but I think it's just the reaction. It's just how the situation played
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah. Involuntary reaction. She couldn't help it.
Yeah. And what about the look on the gentleman's face?
Poor thing. Poor thing.
Do you feel you think the door of conversation is open?
I think it's closed.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. He's embarrassed. I think he's ashamed.
Yeah.
And when we think about the power piece, I mean, do you feel that the gentleman has the power to be able to do what she said he needs to do at this particular time?
No, don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't see his son. at
No.
all.
No.
He
So,
doesn't seem in a position to pick up a phone, call his lawyer and say, I don't want my son to be the power of attorney anymore, please. He's not going to do that.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah.
He's not. No.
I think it's good example of neglect from his son.
Yeah.
Definitely. And he's already confused by this situation and really embarrassed, and friends is not helping at all.
No.
yeah. So as you can see, I mean, we're seeing a lot of things. So again, it's about the see it, name it, check it bit too. And as you become more comfortable with understanding seniors who are in this abusive situation, in an abusive situation, do not have the power. So we need to be able to restore their power and empower them. So, but we have to be able to check it and make sure and ask in a kind way, knowing that we need to be able to open the door to conversation rather than while we see so many wrong things and bad things that are happening, we have to understand by having a gut reaction oftentimes will shut our ability to be able to support them because they probably will not open up or it'll take even longer.
Yeah.
Are we ready for the second one, Mary?
I am. Are
Okay.
you?
Yes.
There you go. How's your son? Well, I don't know really, because between the sailboat and the cottage and the ski trips and the Caribbean getaways, his need for me has been eclipsed. Professor, I don't want to overstep my bounds, but if there's anything that I can do to help, I'm here.
How do we feel about that one?
That was the perfect way to handle it.
Yeah. Just, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like it. Yes, I like it. Without stepping on his toes, she's offering help, and it's up to him. Again, up to him might be a bit.
Any other
He knows,
comments?
he knows the support is there now for him, I think.
Right. Yeah.
It's a respectful kind of reaction because you have to respect where they are.
Yeah.
And respect as a friend, like she said, I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I'm concerned about you and if there's anything I can do. So it opens that door. You believe the door is open for further conversation?
Yes.
And further support.
Yes.
About allowing that senior to gain a little bit more control and power over their destiny, power over their life.
It was also done in a very gentle, loving way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, we don't, we as family, we may be very distant from our loved ones. As friends and as neighbors, it gets further distance, but you get to know people. But it is about, you may not know the full situation. So seeing something that may raise a flag for you, we should always want to try to provide a response as opposed to a reaction, especially if they open up. And you can still broach the topic if you feel you see something and they may not have come to you, but you are a good friend, you can bring it up. I noticed you were talking to your son the other day and are you okay? Because to you, it didn't look right. Okay, if like we said at the beginning, if just something doesn't feel right to you, and of course, if you are uncomfortable saying, well, I don't want to go to my friend yet, I really got to figure it out, you can always call SeniorsNL, or you can call the other contact numbers that we're going to put up shortly in order for you to feel a little bit better, to have that conversation with that senior, your friend or your neighbor. Right, or even family member.
Hi, Kelly. Brenda had a really good comment here. She says, sometimes rather than offering to be there, we have to ask how we can help.
Yes. Yeah. Because it gives that bit of more control in a situation when a senior does not. Catherine, did you want to say anything? Does your group have any comments?
Yeah, in the fact of elders, sometimes the mental abuse has taken part over a long period of time, and they disconnect it with other people and friends. So how do you get help for that group of people?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, something can happen over a long period of time. Leo, did you have a comment?
No, I was going to say, and to add to that, really is, sometimes things are not very simple. They're often very complex, particularly when you involve family members. So it's sometimes not easy to sort that out.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it could take multiple conversations. It can include multiple individuals that may provide support and information. So yeah, like Leo said, if something that has been happening for a very, very long time, people can be very ingrained into it and almost feel totally disengaged and totally powerless. So it is something that will take time, but if you validate their concerns, check it and make sure that what you saw or you heard or you feel is probably it. And then having that conversation, it's the beginning of change and support. Any other comments?
There was a comment here. There are coaches out there who do this kind of work.
Yep, there are.
There's which might be of particular interest to everybody on today for sure. But 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from today, we have someone on who's going to speak about elder mediation and with the focus on abuse. Okay. So that might be, I encourage you to sign up for that when the invitation goes out, because it could be quite helpful and good sequel to this session.
Thanks, Mary.
Any other comments?
I was just going to say, it was interesting to hear in St. John's. I had an elderly uncle who came to me to say that he was getting much older now and he wanted me to be signing on his accounts. So he had 2 banks. So we went to one bank and we just went to the teller and she gave us the paperwork to fill it out. We both filled it out and we walked away. We went to the second bank and the lady at the said that she wanted to speak to him alone.
Right on.
So I was thrilled. And he was fighting it. He said, why does she want to speak to me? And he couldn't understand it. And I said, she wants to make sure that you're doing what you really want to do. But it was interesting, 2 banks. So she took him in alone and asked him, was he being forced to do this? But the other bank, there was no, now they probably knew us from coming in, but there still was no question whatsoever. So one bank just signed over, let me sign over everything. And the other one took him into a private room and talked to him. It's interesting.
Eileen, I have a question for you. Was that, when you say 2 banks, sometimes people can confuse branches and banks. Was that two different banks or 2 different branches?
2 different banks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's something I've been advocating on for many, many years.
Yeah, so this bank must have had policy, knowing that I was coming in as his niece to sign. So I was happy and that they did this, so.
Yeah. I guess there's no way of knowing which banks these are, I guess, because we should be, going to the banks that care about us more than the other ones.
Yeah.
It should be policy.
Yeah. Well, it's something that, is on the radar. I think it is important that, and I've heard of other stories as well, Eileen, of banks that do that as well.
Yeah.
That they will speak to the senior alone, because oftentimes it could be that they are being forced or totally unaware of what can happen.
Yeah.
But it's important. Again, it's about the power piece. And I guess for banks, they do, it would be nice to see some consistency amongst all the banking industries.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there is some work on that, but again, we need to be mindful of that as well.
again, all this work is so slow. I mean, this has been going on for a long, long, long time and nothing has been done. I mean, we've had meetings before on this and other people are working on it, but nothing seems to be done. You know, I don't understand.
Eileen, I'd like to have a conversation with you after some time, if you can, Kelly, if you can share her my email, because I'd like to explore that a little bit further. And you recall some years ago, we did have some conversations with all of the vice presidents of the banks in this province. It met with limited success, but it was an awareness piece. But we found out that not all of the bank branches were following standard policy as laid down by head office. So it points to the need of training within the banking system, particularly as there's a lot of change, staff turnover these days, and that message needs to certainly be communicated to the front line.
No, they didn't know we were.
Good idea.
We didn't. I didn't know that they do that policy, but when we went, we hadn't made an appointment, so it was spur of the moment. So the woman reacted right away and wanted to speak to my uncle. So it wasn't that I prepped him beforehand or knew this was going to happen. So
good idea.
Yeah.
And a good point, very good point.
Yeah. And we do have, in terms of banking, you know, just from my experience, you know, a lot of older adults have gone to the same bank over and over and over again. Embedding the policy and making it mandatory that this occurs. It also helps, I guess, if you do have seniors who are very repeat customers all of a sudden. But if you have a turnover in staff that may not know that Mrs. Smith is a long-standing customer of X bank, and all of a sudden she's accompanied by her son or daughter or a friend asking for absurd amounts of money all the time. Again, it's also recognizing patterns of expenditures as well. You know, Mrs. Smith only ever came and got she came in once a month, she paid her bills, she got $400, she left. We'd see her next month, but all of a sudden now she's coming every 2 weeks with this gentleman taking out $400, $500. And with some banks might say, this is interesting. And you're hearing an awful lot now, Mrs. Smith, what's on the go? That kind of thing, pulling them aside and asking the question. So again, there's that, you know, a conversation, like you said, Leo, probably needs to be done again to see what we can, you know, as a community together address this situation.
I made that very same point at the National Seniors Council's conference on banking issues, that really the banking industry has to be a partner in resolving these financial crimes. And so we need to really, probably, Kelly, we can talk about that sometime. We can re-engage that campaign to do some work there.
Raina had a comment in the chat. She said, in age-friendly community, all organizations should be aware and trained to recognize the needs of elderly people.
Yeah, indeed. I'll just share a quick story too. Back last year sometime, I was in conversation with a lady who contacted me, and she had come home to visit her elderly father. And his story was, I've got to change banks. And she asked, why do you have to change banks? Well, they're charging me too much for money orders. And she said, well, why are you buying money orders? Well, he said, I'm sending money to a religious charity in the United States.
Oh, boy.
And there were, you know, numerous money orders purchased every single month. So consequently, somebody at the front lines may have picked this up, or should have picked this up, and says, you know, Mr. Smith, why, you know, there's something not right about this, you know, sending $100 to this charity and $50 to another charity. I mean, obviously that's the real sign. We talk about the warning signs. Training at the front line would recognize that something is not right here. You know, maybe somebody should speak to them, to Mr. Smith, we'll call him, privately sort of thing to see if this is really right. Anyhow, she fixed this really, really fast sort of thing. There was no more monies going out to religious charities in the United States.
Kelly, if it's okay, I'm going to write to the agent in my bank and stress on this point that they should be doing a second checking, like was it that lady who said that? Yeah, I'm going to write to them.
It's Linda. I've been really listening to this, and I think that the bank piece is a very important piece of this.
Yes.
Whole, even though personnel changes like everywhere else, it would be in the ideal world if each one who came in to work is in an opening package of some sort. Like, it can't be important enough. The other point I wanted to make was, even though I love the idea that the gentleman was taken to one side and spoken about, that scenario, I also was thinking about, I wish there was a different way of doing that, because just think about if the abuser was the one who was with that man, and then that person speaking to the bank would probably have made that a whole lot worse for that person when he or she went home. That was my thoughts.
Yeah.
It's true.
Very good point. Very good point. That's something that, if we're moving forward on that, having that conversation with seniors as well. Like, how would you feel about that? You're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Good point, Linda.
Yeah. Good point.
Any other comments?
Folks, it's Henry. I'm just looking at the slide that's up there now with the adult protection piece, which is great to see. Of course, legal obligation to report under the Adult Protection Act. So you're right, the Act does apply to people who are at risk of abuse and neglect who do not understand or appreciate. But I guess the point I'd make is it's not up to the report source to determine if the person has capacity, right? Like, if you suspect, either case, make the call. Right, because part of the assessment process then will focus on the capacity piece, right?
Excellent. You're right, Henry. If you don't have, you're not, like you said, you cannot say, I don't know if they understand or appreciate, or if they, do you think that they understand the risk that they're in? You just say, you do not know, you're not qualified to do that, but you are concerned, and they will investigate.
And even if it ends up not being an adult protection matter, you're still flagging it. You still may potentially, cut off the power of coercion or bullying that person is experiencing. If you bring attention to it, oftentimes abusers pull in their horns, right?
And Henry, I understand this can be done anonymously as well.
Correct. Yep. You can report anonymously under the Adult Protection Act.
Yeah. Yeah. So don't hesitate.
Kelly?
Yes.
It's Charlene. Just picking up on what Henry was just saying. I've found sometimes when trying to make contact, or reporting something through the adult protection group, if you will. Oh, I'm sorry about a barking dog. Sorry about that. Sometimes it's just I'm told that if the person seems to have capacity, if the issue is kind of dead in the water. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like the adult protection group are more so focused on people who, lack capacity. So if someone has capacity, it's kind of the onus is back on the person to go to the police. I've just got to go grab that dog. 1 second.
He wants to say something, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Perhaps, Henry, when Charlene comes back, you can answer that question. If it's okay.
Yes.
See, now she's back.
Yep, I'm back. I'm here.
Okay, yes, Charlene, I asked Henry if he would be able to answer or comment on what you've just said.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, you're correct. So the Adult Protection Act is what we call a very narrow piece of legislation. So ultimately, it will only apply in those instances where the person has been clinically and legally deemed to lack the capacity to make those decisions. But it still doesn't get the health authority off the hook, right? So if there's a referral and there's red flags around financial abuse, this may be a criminal matter. This may be a matter of bullying or coercion, right? So even though the health authority may close the adult protection file, arguably there's still a community support file that would be open for some type of follow-up. But ultimately, ultimately, if the person is deemed to have capacity, which it's presumed that we all do, and some days I'm not sure about myself, but if we have the capacity, then we do have the right to refuse service as well. So it does become very challenging very quickly.
So Henry, if it's deemed that the person has capacity, you just said the file is not closed per se. Is the onus that, I'm sorry?
No, but the onus, the point you're going to make is correct. The onus is on the person, just like any one of us. So if it's not an adult protection matter and I have capacity, then I have to be a voluntary client of whatever service you're suggesting.
Right.
And if I don't take it, I mean, it comes down to the nature of the therapeutic relationship with that person sometimes to say, like, look, I know you don't want help, but have you thought about the fact that your son's hand is in your pocket all month? But it's ultimately up to the person.
Yeah. No, I just sometimes think that when, as we saw in the scenarios, the senior is feeling somewhat vulnerable. And, you know, if it's clearly, you know, if people appear to have capacity in those scenarios, and yet, you know, if we can say, if we end up just saying to someone, if you want to do something about this, or you go to the police, or you go do this, or you do that, you're still putting it back in the lap of the senior who's already feeling vulnerable and being told what to do. So I guess that's my point.
Yeah, it's a very delicate situation, and I think ultimately the person needs a whole lot of support to first kind of have a sense of the issue, because they might be denying it because of the relationship with the person. They may not want to act because of the relationship with the person. So it's a huge enough hurdle to say that you need help. Then it's even a huge hurdle to say that you're going to act on help.
Yeah.
So it's not to just say, you know, it's up to you. So.
Yeah. And I think, you know, keeping the door of the conversation open as a supporter to say, you know, yeah, you're going to report them, or you're going to report the situation, or you may feel maybe we could have a conversation to open up that trust, to see if that person is open for support. And if you feel that, you know, the adult protection or the process that will now be put in place to try to create some community supports will begin, then, you know, like Henry said, it's a very delicate balance. But again, it should be built on respect and respect for the senior in the situation. And I guess going from there.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Kelly, I was going to say, you know, we talked about training within the banking institutions, but also there needs to be some training or further enforcement at the social worker level. I was involved in a situation where I reported an incident, and you know, I got elevated through one of the health authorities. The social worker went in, sat down with the older lady, but the abuser was allowed to stay. And of course, I mean, that's a no-no. I mean, there should have been, that person should have been asked to leave. And all the questions were, oh, yes, everything's fine, not a problem. So they walked away, report came back, nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So that I didn't think that was handled, but that might be a one-off, but nevertheless, it didn't get the desired results because the abuse continued. You know.
Yeah. Good points. You'll see there's some other communities numbers for community supports for seniors. So if you feel that maybe this might be the better route, and also you can certainly ask questions of the individual that you're speaking to. So they're each individual numbers for different parts of the province.
You don't have to write these numbers down. You don't want to, because I will be sending out tomorrow. I'm going to be sending out these slides. And as you know, we're recording the session, and I will send you a link to the recording as well.
Yeah.
Kelly and Mary, there was a comment here, what Leo, the scenario that Leo, or the thing he witnessed, this lady said, also with debit cards and tech, it's hard to control finances.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah,
Very true. Yeah, you just have to tap the card these days. You don't have to do anything. Just tap it and it's there, gone.
You can even it's the same thing with credit cards nowadays as well.
Yes.
So
I mean credit. I mean credit cards. You know, I mean the credit card. I mean nothing. Just tap it there, and you could have taken that card from anybody.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's, I do some sessions on called seniors financial literacy, whereby the seniors themselves can be better educated in the use of the credit cards, not giving your card to your granddaughter or
right,
money in safe places and things like that.
Yeah.
There was another comment here, Catherine. It says exactly, even though can only tap up to $100 with the debit or the credit card, this can add up over multiple transactions.
Yeah, it can, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a provision where you get the tap removed from your credit card or debit card.
Yeah. So I know that we've been talking a lot about financial abuse, but we also got to keep in mind there are other forms of abuse. Financial abuse always tends to rise above because it is probably the most prevalent. But we do see seniors that are physically abused, sexually abused, spiritually abused, and neglected. So those are the things too we need to keep a mind of, that, you know, these are, you know, psychological abuse can permeate through all of the abuses, really. I mean, you start as tearing people's confidence and power, you know, confidence down, stripping their power. It may, like you said, be a subtle thing over time, like our first scenario. It can be fairly quick and rapid. So as a neighbor, friend, and family, knowing these particular warning signs and being mindful. Sometimes people might say, well, you know, I don't want to be a nosy neighbor. But some people are, you know, fairly good neighbors, and they know each other and help each other out. And, you know, hopefully some of these scenarios in our conversation will allow you to say, you know, I should feel comfortable enough, you know, to be able to have a little conversation and see if I can open up the doors. If it's something that I see, I need to name it and check it.
Henry, did you want to speak to the penalties for not reporting? I'm understanding it is up to $10,000 plus 1 year in jail if you were aware of something and it can be proven that you were a part of this or knew about it and didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, and before I answer that, I'm going to defer to Linda because she was trying to jump in with a comment.
Yeah, I was thinking about, it's wonderful that we're getting to see this, but you know, if we ever do get back to having our 50+ conventions again, would this not be an idea to show this to 400 to 500 seniors who are in the room? They may not realize that this is what's happening to them, but if they see these kind of scenarios, I think that it might make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They, you know, from the inside out as opposed to from the outside going in.
Yes.
Anyway, it's just something that I'm thinking about.
That's a really good point, Linda. And there's actually, how many scenarios, Mary? There's like 6 or 7 scenarios. So there's we didn't share some of the other ones because they're not closed captioned. We need to get those closed captioned. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. It's thought provoking, and it can be very, oh my goodness, this happens to me. So what am I going to do? Exactly. Thanks so much, Linda. Henry?
I'll just jump back to Leo's question. So you're right, Leo. Section 32 of the Adult Protection Act talks about offenses under the Act. So failure to report, it can result in a fine of up to $10,000 and or a year in prison.
Wow.
So we haven't seen any such charges brought under this Act yet, but that doesn't mean that the authority isn't there to do so.
I didn't know about that act, actually. I don't think it's well publicized.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Any other comments? If there's someone in the audience that wanted to say something that wasn't able to, any questions?
Kelly, excuse me, I have to go to my next meeting, okay?
Okay, thanks,
so very much. Thank you. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you for your participation.
Bye.
Anything else? No other comments?
I don't have a comment about this. My name's Dallas. I'm working with Kate at the center. I have an idea for another presentation. Yeah. And I know that personally I ran into this issue with my mother who is getting older. online dating and what to look out for. And I know my mom has gotten sometimes where she's gotten links to go out of the sites and, oh, I need a Google Play card to talk to you, things like that. I think that would be an interesting topic to go, because a lot of people are doing the online dating and a lot of elderly people are going towards that route, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very nice suggestion. Thanks a lot, Dallas.
No problem.
We were
Excellent.
talking about that here yesterday, actually, you know, doing something around healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Really good. Excellent. So before we
Linda, I just wanted to make a quick suggestion, and this is my first time on this today, and I want to say, number one, absolutely fabulous. I've enjoyed every single second of it. It's wonderful information. The other thing is, have you up to now had any kind of presentation from Safer Now?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because it's very important to me and to the different groups I'm part of. So just wanted to check in. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Linda. And I mean, if you have any other suggestions, all of our videos are on our YouTube channel. And you'll probably, because you registered, I'm not sure if you registered, but Linda can make sure Mary sends you the link to this recording as well as all the other sessions that we've had. Yep. Probably before people start checking out, we have a couple of other things. We're going to bring up our second poll. Sherry, if you could.
And the question is, would you feel comfortable talking to a senior about elder abuse?
Can everyone see the poll?
Yeah, I don't think we can as hosts, Mary. Except for Sherry.
Kelly, while this is being tabulated there, I just want to say to anybody that's on this call that really would like to have some questions answered on the financial aspect of the banking part of it, they can, you have my contact information. They can feel free to reach out to me. After 42 years in the business, I know a thing or two about this stuff, having seen a lot of it. So, you know, I might be able to direct them in the right area, sort of thing. So you can put my name forward as a resource for people to contact.
I will include your contact information in the package I send out tomorrow, Leo.
Oh, thank you, Mary.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we'll end polling now. We'll share the results. And the results question again was, would you feel comfortable talking to a senior about elder abuse?
Wow.
And 71% reported very comfortable, and 29% recorded somewhat comfortable, and not very comfortable, not comfortable, all were zero.
Wow, that is great, because that's what we were kind of hoping, that at least we've built a bit of comfort level for you and confidence to be able to have a conversation. So I want to thank you so much. That's great. And you know, hopefully, God willing, we'll actually be able to get out on the road, as Linda suggests. Hopefully the conference maybe next year will happen, and we'll be able to see people's faces and have a much more robust conversation for people, for seniors where they live. And we're very pleased to have so many people participate in our sessions. And again, like Mary said, please send us your suggestions on what else we can do, what kind of guest speakers you'd like to see, all of that. I'm going to pass it back over to Mary now.
Thank you, Kelly. A couple of things. Those of you who, I know in some of the sites that are online, there's more than one person there. If the additional people want to send me their email address, I will make sure to send them a copy of the link and the slides and everything, okay? So you can do that. And also, if there's anybody participating who is there because of someone else who sent them a link, they didn't get an invitation directly from me. If you'd like to get invitations, future invitations sessions, just drop me a note. There's my email address on the screen, and that will be going out tomorrow too. But just drop me a note and ask me to tell me you'd like to go on our mailing list for our Zoom session. And also anyone who indicated it during registration that they wanted a certificate for job-related professional development or post-secondary education, those certificates will be sent out, if not this afternoon, definitely tomorrow. The next session we have next Tuesday, we're going to talk about heart health. We're going to try to keep as healthy as we can so we can go out and fight elder abuse, okay? And we have a pharmacist and a student pharmacist from MUN who will be doing that session. And as I mentioned earlier, 2 weeks from today, we're doing, we have a very experienced mediator on, she's worked provincially, nationally, and internationally, and she will talk about elder mediation. And I think that's about it for today. Thank you everyone for participating in the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day Zoom session. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something, at least one new thing from it. And stay tuned for future Zoom sessions. In the meantime, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Take care and stay safe.
We'll see you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.